Special criminal investigation. Criminal investigation is an art that deals with the identity and location of the offender and prove his guilt in the criminal proceeding. Criminal investigation is the systematic method of inquiry that is more a science than an art. The logic of scientific method must, however, be supplemented by the investigator's initiative and resourcefulness. The sequences of the investigation should be regarded by scientific operating framework that requires improvising on the part of the investigator. Criminal investigation is an art based on intuition, felicity of inspiration, or by chance, and is science based on anticate, professional preparation, and abundance of certain qualities. Investigator is the person who is charged with the duty of carrying out the objectives of criminal investigation. He is an individual who gathers documents and evaluation facts about crime. Special crime investigation deals with the study of major crimes based on the application of special investigative techniques. It is also the study concentrates more on physical evidence, its location, handling, identification, and preservation in coordination with the various criminalistic in the crime. Laboratory. Special crime investigation involves close relationship between the investigator in the field and the investigator in the laboratory. Confession. This is an express acknowledgement by the accused in criminal cases of the truth of his guilt as to crime charged or are some of the essential part thereof. There is no implied confession, for it is positive and direct acknowledgement of guilt. It is the best means of identifying criminals. The rules of confession. First is confession need to be in writing. Confession may be written in a language which the accused does not speak. Confession must be freely and voluntarily made. Voluntarily means that the accused speaks of his free will and record without inducement of any kind, with the full and complete knowledge of the nature and consequences of the confession. Freely, when the speaking is not free from the influence affecting the will of the accused at the same time the confession was made. B. By eyewitness testimony description made by eyewitness. Methods of identification made by eyewitness. First is the verbal description. Portrait partly vividly describing in words the appearance of a person by comparing and true personal appearance. Second, photographic files required by gallery. Second is the general photograph files of photograph in any given establishment. Fourth is the artist assistant of composite sketches, drawing or sketching the description of a person faced by the cartographer. Last is the police lineup, selecting the suspect from a group of innocent persons to eliminate the power of suggestion as factor of identification. Cartography, the art of sketching the image of the person or the art of making map. General principle of criminal investigation. In the performance of his duties, the investigator must seek to establish the 6 cardinal points of investigation. First is the what specific offense has been committed. Second, how the offense was committed. Third is the who is committed it. Fourth is the where is the offense was committed. Fifth, when it was committed, and the last is why it was committed. The basis of criminal investigation. In proving the guilt of the accused in the court, the fact of the existence of the crime must be established. The defendant must be identified and associated with the crime scene. Competent and credible witnesses must be available, and the physical evidence must be appropriately identified. The proof of guilt will depend in the establishment of the essential elements of the crime. The investigator must know by heart the elements of a specific crime. Tools of an investigator in gathering facts. A. Information. Data gathered by the investigator from other persons, including the victim himself and from public records, private records, and module operandi file. B. Interrogation and interview. Questioning of witness, suspects, and offended parties. C. Instrumentation. Scientific examination of real evidence. Application of instrument and methods of physical science in detecting crime. Information is the communicated knowledge by others obtaining by personal study, investigation, research, analysis, and observation. The use of modern gadgets in intelligence and other things and material that passes of contain and desire information or knowledge. 2. General classification of source of information. Open sources, closed sources. Overt intelligence is the gathering of information or documents procured openly without regard as to whether the subject or target become knowledgeable of the purpose. Open sources includes information taken from. Covert intelligence is the secret procurement of information which is obtained without the knowledge of the persons or persons safeguarding vital intelligence interest. Persons as sources of information. Informant net. It is a controlled group of people who work through the direction of the agent handler. The informant's principal or cut-out supplied the agent handler directly or indirectly with intel, information, informants, or asset. People selected as sources of information which could be voluntarily or in consideration of a price. Informant refers to a person who gives information to the police voluntarily or involuntarily without any consideration. Informer, those who give information of the people for price or reward. Types of informants. Criminal informant. An informant who gives information to the police pertaining to the underworld about organized criminals with the understanding that his identity will be protected. Confidential informant is similar to the former but he gives information violate of the law to include crimes and criminals. Voluntarily informant, a type of informant who gives information freely and willfully as a witness to a certain act. Special informant, those who gives information concerning specialized cases only and it is regarded a special treatment by the operatives. Example of special informant, teachers and business and etc. Anonymous informant, those who gives information through telephone with the hope that the informant cannot be identified. Subtype of informant, there are two. First is incidental informant, a person who casually imparts information to an officer with no intention of providing subsequent information. Second, recruited informant, a person who is selected, cultivated, and developed into a continuous source of info. There are three types of categories of recruited informants. First is the spontaneous or automatic informant. Informants who by the nature of their work or position in society have a certain legal, moral, or ethical responsibilities to report into the police. Second is the ordinary run of male informants. Informants that are under the compulsion to report into the police. Last is the special employee. Informants who are of a specific operational nature. There are four informant recruitment. First is selection. It is particularly desirable to be able to identify and recruit an informant who has access to many criminal in-group or subversive organization. Wide access is probably the single most important feature in the consideration of recruiting the potential informant. Second is the investigation. The investigation of the potential informants that has tentatively identified as a probable must be as true as possible. It must establish possible existing motives as to this person might access the police intel community. Failure to do will deny this office who must perform the approach and persuasion phase with little more than a guess. If necessary, conduct complete background investigation or CBI. Third is approach. Approach must be done in a setting from which might include place. Third is approach. Approach must be done in setting from which might include pleasant surroundings, perhaps a confidential apartment, completely free from in any probability of compromise, preferably in an unhascent city or remote area foreign to the informant's living partner. Last is testing. The testing program should begin, of course, with the limited assignment, with a gradual integration into the more important areas. The occasional testing of an informant should continue through the entire affiliation. There are three interview of interrogation. First is interview defined. An interview is the questioning of a person believed to possess knowledge that is an official interest to the investigator. Second is the importance of interview. Interview in crime investigation is very important considering that the person interviewed usually gives his account of an incident under investigation or offers information concerning a person being investigated his own manner and words. There is a basic assumption of importance of interview. Nobody has to talk to law enforcers. No law compels a person to talk to the police if he does not want to. Therefore, people will have to be persuaded, always within legal and ethical limits, to talk to law enforcers. This making interviewing an art. A philosophy of interview and integration. The right officer asking the right question, in the right manner at the right time, and in the right place will get the right answer. Interrogation in general. Interrogation defined. An interrogation is the questioning of a person suspected of having committed an offense or a person who is requested to make a full disclosure of information in his possession which is pertinent to the investigation. Development and control of informants. First is confidential informant defined. A confidential informant is an individual who supplies information on a confidential basis with the understanding that his identity will not be made known. Scientific approach in criminal investigation can assess law enforcers immeasurably, but there is always that one case wherein the crime laboratory cannot help. This is the reason why investigators must to know the man of the street, the man who can supply information. Law enforcers must develop confidential information every day. Surveillance. First is in general. In the investigation of a certain case, a point is reached when the investigator sometimes finds it difficult to secure leads through questioning of the complainant and witnesses. In such a situation, the investigator has to go to the field to locate the criminal or if he is known, to study his habits, movements, and possible accompliance in the commission of the crime. Definition. Surveillance is the discreet observation of the places, persons, and vehicles for the purpose of obtaining information concerning the identities of activities of subject. Objectives of surveillance. to detect criminal activities, to discover the identity of person who frequent the established and determine their relationship, to discern the habits of a person who lives in a frequents the place. Last is to obtain evidence of a crime or to prevent commission of a crime. Shadowing or tailing. It is the act of following a person. Its objectives are to detect evidence of criminal activities, to establish the association of a suspect, to find a wanted person. Last is to protect a witness. There are three types of shadowing employed depending upon the objective of the surveillance. First is loose tail, raw shadowing, close tail. 5. Tactics. The subject should be kept aware that he is being shadowed. The investigator should be inconspicuous. He should not be detected looking directly at the subject. He should shift from the left to right, never remaining for long directly behind the subject. Both sides of the street should be used. If the tail, he should request immediate removal from the statement. Note: the investigator must maintain a note or log containing a chronological record of the activities of both investigator and the subject. Roping and undercover work. It is a form of investigation in which the investigator assumes a different and an official identity or a story in order to obtain information. Arrest of undercover agent. If the police arrest an investigator, he must act in accordance with his orders. Next is the preparation and supervision of discrete surveillance. Familiarize participating operatives with the case. Use sketches, photos, and maps in the briefing. Make a physical description of the subjects. Anticipate contingencies that the areas plan what to do. Ready coins for bus or jeepney fare and for making phone calls. Determine excess and having them covered. Bear in mind that need to secure the search warrant on short notice. Ready materials for recording surveillance. Pre-arrange signals. Maintain contact among the participants. Rotate the participants and apportion their distances. Consider the possibility of counter-surveillance. Choosing proper equipment. That I read. Equipment include motor vehicles, boats, binoculars, camera, radio equipment, handcuffs, containers for evidence, strip or newlate, and other materials with disguising motor vehicles day or night time, firearms, tear gas, or etc. Standards, methods of recording investigative data. First, photograph, sketching crime scenes, written notes what you have seen and observed, developing and lifting fingerprints found at the crime scene, gathering physical evidence, plaster cuts, tape record of sounds, videotape recording of object, and written statements of the subjects and the witnesses. Scientific examination of real evidence. The crime scene search. Processing and secure a crime scene. Processing a crime scene includes the application of diligent and careful methods by an investigator, policeman to recognize identity, to preserve, collect facts and items to evidentiary value that may access in instructing that which actually occurred. The crime scene is the area surrounding the place where the crime occurred. The processing of the area at the scene includes all direct traces of the crime, and this is determined by the time of crime committed and the place where the act occurred. Second is the protecting the crime scene and the evidence. Successful crime scene processing depends upon the policeman's or the investigator skill in recognizing and collecting facts, and items of value as evidence and upon his ability to protect, preserve, and later to represent this in a logical manner. This requires making careful and detailed notes and sketches, using the correct procedures in taking photographs of the scene, taking written statement and the transcribing verbal statements of the witnesses, suspects, and marking and preservation of collected physical objects of evidentiary nature. Next is the laboratory examination of objects and substances located usually at the same crime. Objects and substances needed examination in some cases are carried intentionally or unintentionally by suspect from the crime scene. There are two investigators' notebook. First purpose and the second is recording notes. I read the meaning of purpose. Considering the mass of details and the number of cases, which in some instances an investigator is handling, it is very possible that he might forget some details. Many of details associated with the investigation, while not essential to the report, might become points of interest to the court when the same is brought to trial. Second is the recording notes. The data of the investigation should be recorded in a complete, accurate, and legible fashion so that in the event another investigation is required to assume the responsibility for the investigation, we can make intelligent use of the notebook. Last is the custodial investigation and interrogation. It is the skillful questioning of a suspect or he who still witness to divulge information of the crime being investigated. It must be remembered, however, the police investigators cannot learn proper interrogation merely by reading books. The success of interrogation depends on its legality, topic, physical insight, and the appearance. That is our topic for today. The special criminal investigation. That is the module 1. Thank you for watching.